About the areas, different areas, area A, B, C. According to Oslo Agreement, West Bank and Gaza Strip were divided into 3 different areas. We have a joke in Bethlehem: if you're going to drive your car, you can't put the 3rd gear because immediately you will be stopped by a checkpoint. When you put the 3rd gear, that means you are driving fast. So no way to drive fast in Bethlehem.
Any Arab who's gone on a family trip with their father, in the front seat, has a whole repertoire of welcome to the airline. We are taking you on a tour. We are going to Disneyland. Are you ready? Okay.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الانتفاضة. الاسم نيفين محمد كامل ناموس الحرباوي. قصفوا بيتي وهربت من الخليل لأنهم قصفوا بيتي وعلي وعلى إخوتي وأمي وأبي وهربنا لذلك في القدس ولكن سنثبت هنا والقدس لنا إن شاء الله القدس لنا إن شاء الله واليهود والمستوطنين سيرحلوا من هنا والمستوطنين واليهود سيرحلوا من هنا وإحنا قاعدين في حزن لأنهم قصفوا بيتي وأنا قاعدة في بيتي لأنهم قصفوا بيتي.
Giving you a report, just like some of the two of the major reporters are women on Al Jazeera, and so she was reporting to you exactly the same way that they do in Jazeera when they're reporting from a battle zone, from a checkpoint or so on. So she's very good. Yeah, she's got a future ahead of her. الدبابات ولا من
الطائرات والدبابات.
Her house was destroyed from helicopter fire and tank fire. وكلكم هربتوا لهون؟
قصفوا بيتي واحنا قاعدين ببيت واحد التمينا على بعض والبيت الثاني انقصف احنا وبقوا 3 غرف احنا قاعدين في الغرفة الجوانية وكل البيت راح واحنا بقينا قاعدين فيه.
The first part of the house that they were in was actually hit when they were in it. They were all in one room and they went to the other house and it was الثاني كمان انقصف ثاني مرة. They're from Hebron.
June 2002, the international human rights organization Global Exchange led a peacemaking delegation to Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza in an effort to better understand life under military occupation. Global Exchange's reality tours offer participants an opportunity to journey to other countries to examine conflict firsthand, to see beyond what is communicated by the mass media. Free Speech TV sent me, Shannon Service, and video journalist Andy Derringer to document the reality tour. This 90-minute documentary is not meant to explain all sides of this complex conflict. Instead, it shows a slice of life in the occupied territories as seen through the eyes of Americans traveling for 8 days on a political tour through the region. Join us now as we travel by bus to meet with human rights and peace activists in the West Bank and Gaza Strip.
The same thing is true of understanding what it's like to go through a checkpoint. You can come and look at one, and then there's the experience of going through, and it's emotionally totally different. A little nervous, not that nervous, but it's different. It's different from the way it was yesterday. When even though I was still looking at it, and right here at the same spot, I was still very much considering it as an abstract kind of political thing, whereas now it's personal. Now I'm trying to get through this point. Now I have a plan for the day that's not supposed to get messed up. And to put myself in a place where I am in a position to understand, even for a day or a week, the kinds of considerations that Palestinians have to take to try and live, to try and work, get paid, feed their children. So the things that we take for granted in most countries, I was going to say in America, but in most countries, even countries that are not democracies, people can take for granted that they can, go to the city and try and sell something, or find a job, and that's precisely what is being disrupted here.
We just went through a checkpoint. Can you tell me, is that a normal experience just to get to the university every day for you? And can you tell me what that's like?
It is a normal experience. I have to cross 2 checkpoints before getting to university. I mean, before the 2 checkpoints, it used to take me 20 minutes to get to university. Now it takes me 2 hours, sometimes more. I have late classes that finish at 5, for example. Sometimes they close the checkpoint early, but at 7 I can't get in. I'd have to sleep over at a friend's house. I fight with soldiers. They're very rude, very mean. They harass me sometimes. So it's an everyday routine, To get to your university, to get an education, you have to go through all this. I mean, it's too much,
And how about your family? What's their experience with checkpoints?
We see my brother only on weekends. He gets really agitated whenever he wants to go from, after the weekend to with me on the checkpoints. He gets very scared. I mean, they shoot. So he really gets, he's only, 11 years old. And when you're that age, we want to be somewhere, settled, somewhere, that, it's secure and nobody's going to hurt you. And it's perfectly normal, we understand.
You're talking a little bit about your brother and about shooting. Can you talk about the difference between being a female going through the checkpoint and maybe being a male going through the checkpoint?
Sure. I mean, before the suicide bombings were made by girls, it was much easier for us. The guys had to go in queues. It was easier. We could get through, show our ID, and then. But after the bombings, the girls, it was harder. And I felt, there's a kind of, why guys in a queue and not girls? I thought even chauvinism on the checkpoint. At least now it's like, we make an equal threat to them as much as the guys do. So it's harder now. I mean, it's bad, I know, but it's harder. But at least you feel equal. Yeah.
And what about the particular problems of being a woman? You mentioned harassment earlier. Can you describe that harassment?
Yes. They shout words at me.
What kind of words?
Like, hey, beautiful, or want to sleep with me tonight, or blah, 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 I mean, it's really bad, and you can't do anything about it. I mean, if you shout back, he'll raise the gun in front of your face. It's like, yeah. One time, on Christmas time, on Surda checkpoint, the one leading to university, they had a queue for ugly girls and for pretty girls, the soldiers. Those are 16-year-old guys, it's having fun.
16-year-old guys with guns.
Guns, exactly. You saw the checkpoint. what happened in Jenin. I'm against suicide bombings, but the thing is, if you're with or against, it won't do any good. You'll have to understand how people feel, how they become. I mean, when a suicide bomber goes and commits suicide, he commits suicide. Actually, it's not only he kills people, he kills himself too. We have to think about that. I mean, what people. They say they have nothing to lose. It's because they've lost everything. I'm talking about a 17-year-old guy from Jenin who lost his parents, probably his friends, his house. You have to think and understand why he's doing that. Israel is pushing people to go have suicide bombers. It's actually, I hold them responsible.
Pushing how? Can you describe exactly how Israel is pushing people towards suicide bombing?
Of course, in going into Jenin and killing everyone in there, in having those checkpoints, in humiliating, in the economic situation is very bad, and it's because of them. And we are under siege. Okay, all the time. You look in the, at the sky, there are airplanes. You look at the street, there are tanks. You look, you're always threatened to die. So, you no longer have anything to lose. You don't have your freedom in any way.
Palestine. أنا آخر واحد.
تعالي عندي تعالي.
What do you want else to hear? You want to hear about my personal misery? And Mr. Bush calls it a war against terrorism. These are the terrorists. He should wage his war against the Israeli terrorists. These are the real terrorists, worldwide terrorists, not just local for us Palestinians. We are not terrorists. This is our land. We are trying to live our life, and these are preventing us to live our natural life, whatever is left of it.
We talk a little bit about security.
What security?
The security, the Israelis, the fence that's now going up between the West Bank and Jerusalem.
It's not going to give them any inch of security, any ounce of security. There won't be any security. Security is a state of mind. You have peace with your neighbors, you have security. Imagine everybody in the world putting the China wall. There is no security with walls, there is security with dialogue and with respect. They don't have respect for others. No security without respect. And they don't have respect. They took our land, we didn't take their land. Record this, they took our land prior to 1948. We did not take anybody's land. Here, why don't you look at the archaeological sites of our ancestors, one over here, and where is the other one? Just around this corner. See the archaeological tombs around here. They are not Jewish tombs. If they were Jewish tombs, then there would be an Israeli soldier sitting to protect them.
We talked to an Israeli yesterday who said that that it's a matter of how far back you go, that if you go back 3,000 years or 3,000 years, that the land was promised to them by God. How do you...
Of course, I'm a Christian. God promised me this land. He said, the hell with the Jews, the hell with Judaism. This is the New Testament, this is the new era. Who are they trying to fool? I am a Christian. I know their history, I read the Bible. A lot of it is fake. Why did Christ come? Why do you think Christ came? To keep the same order? It's a new order. It was promised to us, not to them. Those who believe in God, this is their land. They don't believe in God. Those who kill others don't believe in God. Don't at all believe in God. I'm not making a speech. I'm just mad. I want to go to my work.
Okay, let's go.
You can't take his passport. Do you understand English? Does he understand? And he just took your passport.
Yeah, because I want to pass. I want to go to Ramallah, and they're giving me a hard time every day.
سلموا أولاد بالفور سلموا أولاد بالفور وحكوا لهم في بريطانيا في لندن لندن بلير الممتلئ
I just thought we all got run over, and he wants to sell ice cream. I mean, I guess
Stampede about.
And nobody knows. I think one of the soldiers just pointed his gun. But what's so surreal is that people just quickly go on, and somebody asked if we want ice cream after we all just think we were about to get run over. Human stampede. It's just unreal.
Take the pink one. How much? 2? So was that a lot easier than it usually is for you?
This?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's actually, this is worse than ever.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because this last week, because it wasn't like that. I mean, they did it once in a while. Now it's been going on like that for a week. I mean, every day. So it's like they're saying this checkpoint will stay. This is what they're saying, and so we can't go to university. I mean, before we couldn't go because there were incursions in Ramallah, or the other checkpoints were closed. But it wasn't this bad, you know. It wasn't this bad. I guess they're doing it on purpose. I mean, they know there's a university, and they don't want us to get an education. You know, I was in Jerusalem the other day, and I was at the Hebrew University, and they go with their cars. They get there, go to their classes. You know, it's all on our expense, so that they go. We don't go to our university, so that they go to their university. It's like, you know, what is this? It's like we're not humans, and they are. It's like. But you know what really makes me more angry? It's like it's become so normal for me. I don't get angry enough anymore. You know, I get sick of getting angry. It's like every day on every checkpoint you get angry and angry and angry, and you can't deal with your anger. You can't do anything about it. See, that's the worst thing. You know, you feel that you can't do anything. You can't change. But you know, this is not fair.
Today in the newspaper. Okay, it's about Bush. It's about his changing his elevations of mood, and you know the way he changes his look. You know, today he says, "Okay, I'm glad with what the Palestinians do." Tomorrow, no, I don't agree with the Palestinian leadership. I don't want it, and that's it. Now, not all the Palestinians agree with Arafat, but he's our leader. The authority is our leadership. We have to stick to it as one, okay? Now, the point is not about who's leading, it's about the people. The people should be the center. Now, Bush is concentrating so much about the authority, he's not concentrating about the people. We are suffering for 2 years. I haven't seen my grandparents for 9 months now? Now, if my grandfather dies now, I'm going to have that grudge in me for the rest of my life. I can't help it. It's going to be in me. We are humans, and that's the point, the whole point about it.
Civilians have nothing to do with this. Why are they punishing us for the actions of some other people that radicals? But come on, if you think about it, if Americans are put under these situations, and I lived in America, and trust me, they would not put up with this.
We're the government to say, stop supporting the Israelis in the military. This is a big case for us. They are bombing, the tear gas, the sun bombs, the bullets. They are made in America. We could see them everywhere in the streets. And what the pressure we have from the Americans are killing us also through Israel.
Like that lady from Texas said, half of them would bomb themselves, which is true. You know, you cannot always say that we're the terrorists. You have to look at things from 2 points of view. I lived in America, and I got people, I communicated with a lot of students, and they went for the Palestinian cause, but it's just how we're portrayed. Yasser Arafat is the head leader terrorist. That's not true. He's a leader that's trying to get a government. He's trying to get a society, development. He's trying to make a Palestinian nation, but we're not allowed to do that.
We had the Bethlehem project. It turned the city of Bethlehem to a paradise. Now it's all ruined. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent. They're gone. You have Nablus, the old city in Nablus. Archaeology, thousands of years old, it's destroyed. Soap factories that are 2,000 years old, they have been bombed by F-16s, totally destroyed. It's about the destruction of civilization and of the people, of our nationality as Palestinians.
The director of the military area can arrested any Palestinian who suspected to be doing anything, and he's not guilty, but who they think that he might be guilty, they can arrested him for 18 days without letting the lawyers visited him, without giving an answer where he is, without any legal procedure. And in those 18 days, which is the important period for the prisoners, because it's the beginning, you want to be sure that he's treated okay, he's not tortured. You can't send lawyers because it's not allowed.
And in a situation where there's these mass arrests and detentions where no one has access to lawyers and whatever, and at the same time incursions where people are being killed and it's chaotic and people buried in the rubble and all of that, my question is, how many people are missing, and how do people know whether they're dead or they're detained?
While we are working during the invasion, we are working in a very difficult situation. We were at our houses because it's curfew, there is invasion. So, and all the volunteers and members of Damir working from their houses, using their mobiles, and we let our telephone follow us here at the office, follow us at houses. So, and our lawyers, they stay located at Jerusalem. So we took the case by phone and we asked the lawyers to try to find out where is the prisoners. It takes some time to find out. And while we are trying to find out, because the family, they don't know if he's killed or he's arrested, we find at least 10 cases that they were shooted and killed. They are not arrested at all, but from the invasion and from the shooting, they were killed.
Just wondered what this situation was speaking to. What is happening here?
It's shabih.
They tie your hands behind your back and they take it up like this, and you can't stand and complete rest on your feet because you have to stand on your fingers, and this causes trouble in the breath and tooth.
He has an ex-prisoner, so he can. And he's an ex-prisoner.
Here.
The same, yeah.
Yes. Okay, and I just wondered.
And this is also like you stand to the wall.
You
tie and you stand to the wall.
The next day, our delegation was attempting to get to Nablus, a mid-sized city in the West Bank. Travel to Nablus was particularly difficult due to heightened security in the West Bank following double suicide bombings. There was a bombing the previous day in Jerusalem, followed by another that morning. There was also an attack on a settlement that same day.
I don't even remember how many checkpoints we've been through already today. We've been through quite a few just in short distance that we've been driving. Maybe we've gone 30 miles, I'm not sure. And even as Americans, as privileged Americans with our US passports, we're not allowed to go through. And part of the reason why we feel it's so important for us to go to Nablus is because people in the United States have heard about Jenin, they know about the destruction of Jenin, but in fact the destruction in Nablus and the death toll in Nablus was much greater. And people think of Jenin as an isolated incident, and it's not, and that's why it's so important for us to get there.
So what do we have here?
It's a belt off of a machine gun.
A caliber or anything like that?
Actually, it's interesting because I'm not sure what it is. It looks like a 30-06, except that the shell is too short, so it must be some kind of Israeli firearm, Galil or something. But although it's it's a machine gun, it's a belt-driven machine gun, so I don't know. They must have their own belt-driven machine gun caliber. This American machine gun would be 50 caliber. Or a BAR would be 30-06, and it's not a BAR, and they don't use belt anyway. So I don't know what it is. But it's a good souvenir. It'll make a hat band. Something to do while you're wasting your time. So easy to fire and apart and so hard to put back together. It's sort of like any kind of military operation. It's easy to destroy stuff and hard to put it back together.
So why aren't they allowing you to go in?
Why?
Yeah.
Because I am Palestinian. I live in Bethlehem, and in order to reach Nablus, I need permission. Do you imagine that?
Yeah.
West Bank, it's occupied area, and in order to move from a place to place, you need the permission, or the permission of the Israeli authorities to enable you to go outside of your house.
You don't have free movement
at all. It's only in the area where you are living on. You can't go outside your area where you are living because it's in your ID, it's registered where you are living. So if you move to Ramallah, for example, or Nablus, and they see your ID card saying that you was born in Bethlehem and living in Bethlehem, they will not let you to enter any other those areas.
But
I feel like a teacher.
That's what we're here. Can you take this or no?
No, because he's a Palestinian and he doesn't live in Nablus. He lives in Bethlehem.
It's supposed to be one area.
Okay,
so
but
you
not,
can move one place
not
to the other.
in this period of time.
Why? When is the? I mean, we want to know why. This is
okay,
why.
For the last few months. I think it's pretty obvious why.
I don't understand it because it's one area. The West Bank is supposed to be one area, and Palestinians live in it and move around.
But
and Nablus is part
period,
of the West Bank.
The situation is like Nablus is area, Bethlehem is area, Ramallah is one area. After all this mess will end,
what does that accomplish?
Or maybe cool down. Maybe they will be able. Oh, wait, maybe you have.
months.
Do you know if anyone was killed by the suicide bomber that just struck? Wasn't
16 people in Jerusalem at least. That's 16. That's what we've heard. 16 واحد بيقولوا في القدس اللي yeah, 16 at least.
So that's a major strike. So there's going to be major collective punishment.
It's like, I don't know why we're still in that, but it's basically time to yeah.
Right. Had a way to break it down for us. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
well,
I really don't think that we should stay here much longer. I really don't.
استشهاد ينفذ لا هول قتلوا 4 لا هذا عمل عملية استشهادية عشان قتلوا ابن عمه
هذا ناصر خروة عندي رد يا زلمة
Okay.
ايه كانوا ضربوهم كمان
يعني
طب يلا let's catch up
تبان اجزعين
Thought about that, but there wasn't enough smoke to make it impressive.
They're the only family that when the Israelis came through and called for people to leave their homes, they refused to leave their homes.
Who's still surviving?
طب مين هلا اللي ساكن فيها؟
هلا المرة هي معلمة المدرسة
عمره 65 سنة شدوه شد زي كأنك بتشدي ولد صغير واخذوا اخوتي واخذوا الاطفال مصابين هذه دمها بهون.
They took him away. Yeah, they took him because he was trying to tell them why are they doing this peacefully.
اخذوا شبابنا اخذوا الشباب
And they
كلهم
took
ربطوهم
the men in
هيك
the family and they tied them up and they took them all.
هيك ربطوهم هيك
رجعوهم ولا وينهم هلا؟
هلا معتقل اخذوا جوزها معتقل والشباب الباقيين عم
No, they're still over there.
18 يوم 20 يوم ضل اهانه وروحوهم اما ضل هلقيت اخوي اللي هو
Is there any word of him?
الآن مش معروف عنه أي شيء ولا هو ولا ناصر.
No one knows anything about him or Nasser, the other one that was taken, the one that was at the house that we saw that was demolished. There's been no word on them. No one can find out what happened to them. They just know they were taken.
Do you know how long ago?
هذا الحكي قبل شهرين صار ولا شهر؟ Like about a month ago.
And still no word?
No word. He's one of them was like the head of the Hamas, you know, in this area. He was like running the, and the other one, Nasser, was leading the Aqsa brigades in this area. مش يعني في كل different. Nasser was the head of the entire West Bank for Aqsa brigade. بس هذا كان
كان مسؤول عن جهات من حماس.
He was just responsible for just a part of Hamas.
Does he have any suspicion of what's happening to him?
Yeah, normally it's just known that like we saw yesterday.
They tortured.
شحد ضل ألوان
food? Do you think we should buy food for 3 days? Do you think we should buy food for, like, I'm serious?
Yeah, we could
like
go.
practical questions.
No, you don't understand because we got stuck in my grandparents' house for 3 days living on like yogurt.
Really?
It wasn't that bad, but it was annoying.
Not a huge. So buy something you really like.
But everything else sucks.
No, no more.
All right.
So Joel, you nervous at all? Really? Why not? They're gonna bomb the city tonight. What? You don't think so? All right. That's not the word on the street.
Stuck in our hotel room and it's going to be bombing next door in about 3 hours.
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was gonna call my parents and say basically.
There is no start.
Just no, it's not like usually it's 6. So is there any chance at all that like the fact that a busload of Americans and probably other internationals just went into the city that won't deter them at all, will it? No. Okay. I thought maybe.
Makes me think they're not going to do anything here.
If they just warned you at the checkpoint to go
Right.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're really not nervous, huh?
I don't think anything's going to happen to us. I said I don't think. I didn't say I do.
And what are we watching?
This is Al Jazeera channel, and he is in Ramallah right now. It's that 20 people is the final tally of how many people died in the bombing today. Today the shaheed came from Ramallah, the person who did the suicide attack, and he basically passed through the checkpoints and he took a bus that was just a regular commuter bus for the people, and it was during rush hour. They said there was high school students on the bus. It was packed, and the bomb exploded. He killed about 20 people was the total, and they said I think
20 Israelis.
20 Israelis, and over 50 are wounded. And so far they just entered Jenin, and we've already heard that they're going to enter Ramallah too.
How do they know that they're going to enter Ramallah?
It goes from one person to another. Oh yeah, they're going to come in today, or maybe the Palestinian police get the information, or it's just like people usually know. And also we heard today through the checkpoint from the soldier himself that they're going to come in tonight. So usually after a suicide attack like this, especially 20, this is probably the largest in a while. A suicide attack that they have, so 20 is a large number, and they're probably going to do something. And they've even said it on CNN, and other news channels have been saying that Israel's planning a large retaliation.
ومن بين العدد الكبير للضحايا طالب جامعي عربي من داخل الخط الأخضر وعدد من تلامذة المدارس. وحسب الشرطة الإسرائيلية فإن المنفذ صعد إلى الحافلة بالقرب من قرية.
The word Gaza means the strength, which comes from Izzah. And the Gaza itself, they say it's a very old city and goes back to something like 2000 to 3000 BC. And they say so because it used to be a kind of a link between Asia and Africa, and it used to be a very prosperous area for trade missions, and therefore it was called as well Ghazat Hashim, referring to the grandfather of Prophet Muhammad. The new Gaza has expanded a lot, and the new Gaza is 45 kilometers square, and it has 400,000 inhabitants. And let's talk about this area now, where we are right now. It's very famous called Tel el-Muntar, or the mountain of Al-Muntar. Al-Muntar might mean a watching post, and it's very much mentioned among the history, and it was a very important point for in the times of the Crusaders and the locals, kind of war, and even in the times of the Israelis, and even earlier. And those who wanted to protect Gaza, they used to stay over here in the night and start to check if any are entering the Gaza from any direction. And it used to be a transmission station for the radio, and they thought that the Palestinian TV is very aggressive, and the Palestinian TV is helping the Palestinians to, or the enthusiasming them to fight the Israelis. So they decided to shell it.
Are there any students here who are deaf as a result of the occupation, whether by sound bomb or, is everyone?
It depends. It depends upon it depends upon the causes for hearing loss. Some of the causes for hearing loss is the illnesses, recurrent ear infections. Some of them trauma. Some of them infection like meningitis also, and some of them heredity. So of course, we'll find some of these children were affected by a bomb or so on, because the occupation is here for a long time. It's not just Al-Aqsa Intifada.
Can you tell me a little bit about what you were thinking last night when we were in Ramallah and we thought that there was going to be an attack on Ramallah?
I was not particularly nervous. I felt that, although I was quote unquote quarantined, I still felt that we were shielded from the greater reality. Where we were, I didn't have any high expectations that we would have been disturbed in any way. However, what was disturbing, simultaneously that thought is disturbing, that we would be comforted in our, hotel, and yet in the very city where we are, other individuals, human beings, would be having their lives destroyed.
Welcoming all of you. حكيت علي
ولا مطمن
دقيقة بس بالنور لأنه مستعجلين لازم نروح بيت حنون لا ما هو لازم يكون عايش 3:30 يلا باي
Of course, Israel do control Gaza, land and sea. So it's like big prison. They didn't satisfy with that, and they decided to make Gaza Strip to Gaza strips. So we are cut to 3 pieces. Welcome to the other side of the moon. Gaza Strip 365 square kilometers. That's all. 42% of the Gaza Strip, according to Oslo Accords, under very direct Israeli control. In it, there is 19 settlements plus almost 4,000 to 5,000 Israeli settlers. And moving from one side to another, as most probably you are going to experience, it's rather mission impossible. Sometimes it takes you 2, 3, or 4, 5 days. It depends, like lottery number. I have twins, one boy, one girl. And they are now 8 years old. And this was a year ago. I'm busy working here 15, 16 hours, very hard. I mean, getting with them 5 minutes or so. And they were saying to me, Dad, you have to bring a gun to the house. I have a rule, no guns, in the house. And nobody comes to my house or office with a gun. And the only ones who used to come with guns, the Israeli soldiers, when they used to arrest me, putting me in the prison. They were not born yet. So one day, I was having some time. I said, come to the car. Me and their mom went to the toy shop. I parked there and I said, come, we'll buy a gun. They said, what? You are kidding us? We don't want toys. We want real guns. I said, what? Real guns? What for that? They said, you have to bring real guns to protect us. To protect you. From whom? Say from the Israeli soldiers, settlers, from the aeroplanes and the Apache. You have to bring real guns. I said to them, but Dad, me and your mom, strong enough. I'm big, I'm with muscles. I protect you with my body, with my arms. Don't worry about all these settlers, soldiers, etc. I can, They said, oh, Dad, you want us to die like Muhammad al-Durra. Now, if this is the conclusion of 7-year-old boy and girl, with these conditions, tell me, what are the conclusions of Jenin people, or Rafah, or Khan Yunis, or Turkarim? Tell me, what is the conclusion if you are losing this and that?
A lot of people try to compare the Palestinian resistance movement to other colonial experiences and other resistance movements. So do you think then that this therefore makes it it's a unique experience altogether, that it can't be compared? And if that's the case, then where do you go?
I said before, the master of the game, really the Israelis. And they have to choose marriage or divorce. We have no problem with both. They want one state, whatever it's called. I don't pay damn care. Supposedly Israel is liberal democracy. And peace, like marriage, love might come later, like the Arabs say, but respect, most important, right? Respect. You have to respect the other. You can't deny. They will not be able to throw us to the sea. I'm definite about that. And we have no intention either. But we won't allow them to throw us to the sea. We are here, we are staying here, and we will continue to stay here.
Wednesday, June 19th, we're in the Gaza Strip in Gaza City, right on the Mediterranean Sea. We were having a very pleasant dinner here at the Adira Hotel outside. It's a beautiful night. When all of a sudden we started hearing Israeli helicopters move in from overhead, and we saw them firing missiles. They started raining down from the sky. They were red. In fact, the helicopters are still in the area, and they were bombing just in this region right behind me, and there's reason to believe that they could be firing again. They could be firing these missiles again. The places that We believe that they're targeting, this is the best information we have right now, is that they're targeting Jabalia refugee camp, which is the largest refugee camp in the Gaza Strip. It has 80,000 inhabitants in 1 kilometer square. Another area that we believe they're bombing is Khan Yunis City, and another area is called El Zaytun neighborhood, which is also in Gaza City.
It's really hard. It's really hard to talk. I just know that nobody should have to live like this, and I think it's just so. It doesn't add to the road to peace to have such to have the rhetoric and the language of surrounding terrorism be just thrown out there on a daily basis. Terror this and terror that. The Palestinian people live under terror. They have been terrorized now for generations, and that's state-sponsored terrorism. And as a U.S. citizen, I know that I own those Apache helicopters, and I cannot begin to describe how disgusted, absolutely disgusted I feel, and how helpless I feel that I can't stop it. I can't stop it. For me right now, I'm just feeling an overwhelming sense of powerlessness, just realizing especially after having seen Gaza today and just seeing the underdevelopment and the lack of, just the situation in Gaza, and then seeing this one helicopter, this huge expansive city, it's 1 million people, and yet they're still they have no power to defend themselves, and then just to see how this one helicopter can fly around and just impose like absolute destruction, and it's so far away from I don't know. I'm just thinking about being in the United States, reading about this in the newspaper, knowing that it's happening, but then actually being here and feeling it, and also just looking around at the people that are local to here, seeing the reactions of the waiters and people who live here, and seeing the normalcy of it all. That disturbs me very much, because it's a reflection of the feeling that there's nothing that anybody can do about this, and so that it'll keep continuing.
It's very surreal. That's my reaction. Here we are in this kind of exotic movie set, and somewhere there's explosions going on. It seems very remote.
This kind of act done by the Israeli military is not going to be a very productive act, and will not lead to a solution for the conflict we're living here in Gaza in the meantime, because this is still violence, and violence will not generate anything but violence.
That it doesn't, at this moment, doesn't feel any more significant than if I'd seen it on the news, and maybe less so, because I didn't imagine there's a CNN photographer down there filming something burning right now, and I'm not seeing that. I'm still listening to the music, and everything's normal here. So it's less dramatic because it's not packaged. There isn't a little image for us to look at.
It's also building a new level of hatred, a new level of revenge among the Palestinians, that they would like to have their revenge from hitting them while they're innocent.
This is what people live with, and I guess it just was even more profoundly personal to me, because we met the people in Balata refugee camp yesterday, and this little child, when he saw us come in, was just shaking and started crying because he thought we were the Israelis, and the reason he was shaking and crying is because his entire house was demolished and his father was taken away.
I mean, just on the beach today, I was mentioning earlier that at least 3 of the children that were there in separate conversations had made some remark about, maybe one day I'll be a martyr, and so there's just this mentality of that's what being Palestinian is that, to live in these areas, in these desperate, underdeveloped, totally neglected areas where there are refugees,
there's just a sense of, well, the only thing I have to give is to die for my country.
Welcome to Democracy Now! I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli armed forces have bombed Gaza City and invaded Bethlehem, Jenin, and its refugee camp, Nablus, Ramallah, Kalkilia, Hebron, and Dura. The attacks come after a second suicide bomb attack in Jerusalem in 2 days, which killed 6 Israelis and injured over 30. We're joined right now first by Dalal Hassan, who is a student activist in Gaza, which has just been bombed.
Dalal, Gaza has largely escaped the invasions and the occupations and the city by city attacks of the Israelis. Are people there expecting that after these recent bombings in Jerusalem that it's going to be targeted more extensively now?
Well, I mean, I guess you haven't heard that last night it was targeted, and then there were attacks on Gaza, which we actually viewed. There were helicopters and F-16s firing on the Gaza Strip. We saw at least 4 to 5 missiles that were fired. We're actually hoping to be on our way to actually view the destruction of those attacks. So it's something, it's been, the locations that we've heard are Khan Yunis, the Jabalia refugee camp, and Zaytuna were hit last night by Israeli fire. So it's actually not surprising it's not something that is unfamiliar to the residents of Gaza. They have been continuously ready and aware for these attacks to occur, although it doesn't always get covered.
Dalal Hassan, we have to break for stations to identify themselves. When we come back, we're going to go to Jenin and find out what has happened there with the reinvasion of Jenin, as well as a number of other West Bank towns.
She was talking about how the other cities were hit, and she's like, Gaza has the residents of Gaza have usually been saved from these. They have not been hit by these retaliatory actions. Are they afraid that they're going to be next? I'm like, no, they're not afraid they're going to be next. It happened last night. How can they not? There was one person killed, though. She corrected the report afterwards. She said, you're right, they did hit Khan Yunis. She said, I think, injured or killed. Ouch. You okay? Oh, my foot is asleep.
هم ما بخلوش شيء حتى هذا يعني حتى البرص هذا راح يعدوا. And he said everything around here, it was taken only yesterday. This land was uprooted yesterday evening.
بس أنا بعتقد إنه في هذا خطوة لتمهيدا لضم أو لعمل منطقة عازلة. أنا هيك وجهة نظري.
But he believes, as a researcher in this area, that this kind of measurements are the start of having a buffering zone next to the settlement, like a security zone. And the people that just joined us over here are the farmers. And you can individually ask directly any one of them what happened with his land.
Can I ask a question?
What is the justification? Why do they bulldoze this area?
They excuse that all the time. They say that they're armed people who are starting to do some operations against the Israelis, and they come from here. It's only some security justifications.
These are really low. I mean, nobody can hide in these small
بس هو كتير هادي واطية ومحدش بيتخبى بيقدر يتخبى فيها. Said this is what we know as well. This is the problem.
They're hiding in the eggplant.
What are they saying?
Someone just said there's a tank coming. Where? When? A
tank is coming.
From where? Yeah, there's a watchtower over there, maybe about 800-900 yards, and it can see anyone who's entering from way down there, where we entered from, which is maybe another 900 yards away or something. I don't know. And the goal is, as he said, if you zoom over there and into that settlement, and what they do is, okay, there's the settlement. And the technique is just to surround Palestinian lands with settlements, and obviously the goal is to expand the settlements. So you see how Palestinians are stuck in between settlements. بتصور فيكم.
Can you tell me how many months growth there was before it was
قديش
launched?
كان عمر المحصول؟
المحصول هو يعني كان في
أول شيء الأرض قديش عمرها؟
عمرها من يوم قبل ما تيجي إسرائيل معنا أراضي.
قديش عمر المحصول؟
المحصول يمكن ما يقارب
Okay, the land we own it from grandfather to father, and we used to plant in this area from ages, but the crop that was here, it was with 5 months old.
بخصوص محمد عبد الشيخ في له
مشتل توت. Other person who has another land next to here, he used to have a greenhouse of strawberry that he used to regularly start the planting of it on October, and they buy it with many dollars from Israel. They buy the seeds. It's what 2 dunams area was planted with the strawberry, and it was totally destroyed yesterday.
Will he be able to replant and have a harvest this year?
فكر السنة ترجع تزرعها ولا مش حتقدر؟
أكيد أنا إذا في عندي فرصة بدي أزرعها.
If I have the chance to access to my land and replant it, I will. But of course, this will cost me very much for the pipes and the watering nets. I estimate only the watering pipes with something like $50,000.
Will he be able to afford to
معك مصاري
regain his
ترجع؟
قصدين الله بدنا نتجه للمؤسسات الحكومية.
Yet I don't have the total number, but I will start to ask some NGOs and organizations to help me for replant this land. Because these lands that were uprooted, that you saw around, that it's the land that gets the income for almost 300 persons that they live from this land. This is the only thing that we have.
The farmers' fields were our last stop in the Gaza Strip. According to our itinerary, we were supposed to head back to the West Bank and spend the next 2 nights in Bethlehem. However, the Israeli military had imposed curfew or house arrest over the entire town of Bethlehem, and no one was allowed in. So our delegation headed back through Israel to Jerusalem.
The creation of the State of Israel, first of all, and then the occupation of the rest of historical Palestine in 1967 is not acceptable behavior between nations. That's what's in the UN Charter, which was made after World War II to prevent nations from invading one another, to prevent them from occupying one another, to prevent the people of one nation from oppressing, killing, deporting, moving the people of another nation. Unfortunately, the situation is complicated here. You have a state called Israel, which has enough history now. It's enough of a legitimate nation in the sense that it has its own citizens. It has many citizens. The majority of its citizens now were born here, have lived here all their lives, view it as their home, don't have anywhere to go back to, won't necessarily be accepted for citizenship by any other country, maybe America, but... And you have still the fact of the Palestinian refugees who have been waiting to return back to their land. It's also their right. This whole equation might be simpler if the resistance movement in the occupied territories were just a resistance movement in occupied territories, the way that we had the French resistance against Germany during World War II, for example. But it's more complicated, and it raises an issue of what is acceptable resistance.
kilo. And that's on the front line with Bethlehem and Bejala. Where the old house right here, there is over 60 dunams, belongs to the Syrian community of Bethlehem. My wife is one of this community, and this land was confiscated. And this is the new fence they just put on about a year ago. They start, planning for it. So all this area, all these new houses right here on the right-hand side, and including the piece of property across the road. This is 60 dunams, where my wife was a child coming and picking these olives up from this land. Look at this quarry that used to be on the left-hand side. A family with 30 workers that were cutting stones back there to the left. Through the last incursion, the Israelis have demolished the whole thing. They just flattened the land.
Passport ready. This is a checkpoint.
This is a checkpoint on the bypass road.
She's just checking out the picture.
Joni Lee Jones. She looks the same in that picture. Canada, let's see. Whoa, Hanan, you look pretty in your picture. Just not in person. Martaz Mahmoud and Hassan. You look like a terrorist in your picture.
Israeli newspaper in English, and he said he accepts Clinton proposition of 1999. It was, I think it was in 1999.
What exactly was the proposition?
To give us 97% of the land.
But divided up, right?
But we don't know exactly what is the 97%. 97% of what? This is the whole idea. Is the 97 including the River Jordan area, Jericho, all the Bekaa Valley, the Jordan Valley? Does it include East Jerusalem or the surroundings area? What is the 90% of what?
It's like the large jail. You can have, the person from the Israeli Committee Against House Demolitions was saying, as you know, that in a jail, the prisoners own 97% of the jail.
Exactly.
And
that's what it is.
And
it's
the
a
guards
big jail. Yeah.
only need, the cell walls. They only need, they only need those little control towers. They only need, the divisions. This is like one huge jail.
I
think it's
several jails that has no connections, no bridges to connect them.
Tommy? We are entering Efrat, one of the larger settlements in this Gush Etzion block. We have to the left Elazar, and on the top Daniel. We can go to the left. You see these fields here? These are grape vineyards, and in normal times we had Arabs who came in and worked the fields without any problems. Okay, let's go. My name is Tommy Lamb. Came to Israel 32 years ago from Australia originally, but being Jewish, my background and my education was from day one part of the Jewish people, and as an essential part of the Jewish people, the home of the Jews is Israel. The area that we live in is Efrat, and I was one of the founding members of Efrat, perhaps one of the first 10 families. Today we have 1,800 families living here, which is approximately 5,000 or 6,000 people. Now you'll say, what am I doing here at all? What am I doing in this area? People talk about the occupied lands. I don't regard this as occupied land. I regard this as the land of Israel. This is the ancient land of Israel. You go anywhere from here, 20 minutes north, 20 minutes south, 20 minutes east, 20 minutes west, you do any archaeological dig, what will you find? What will you find? I can take you, go to Susia. You will see a mosaic, a beautiful coloured mosaic. Excuse me for saying, it's not a Palestinian mosaic.
Initially you said that we didn't take anyone's land, this settlement was not created on other people's land. But we know that, for example, in Hebron, and in other places, lands that were occupied, had homes, lands that were being farmed by Arabs were actually bulldozed in order to make way for settlements. And the second part, the real question, I know, but the real question is, you say that, we as Jews belong here, this is our land, we have some ancient historical connections to it, but from what I understand, the majority of the Israelis feel that this is a war of the settlements, and they don't actually want Israelis on this land because it's making them unsafe in Israel proper. And the fact that all these bypass roads are created and all these checkpoints and the West Bank and Gaza have been turned into all these little Bantustan's, as people call them, is a product of the settlements.
Look, I can tell you in all honesty, as much as I know, and I've lived here for many, many years and I'm aware of the situation, it is the policy of the government and of the settlers not to touch any land which is owned, which is owned or worked on by Arabs.
You are saying that you are perfectly happy to live side by side with Arabs. So my question is, if Jews can return to this land from the diaspora after, for many of them, 2,000 years, why can Arabs not return to the same land after 50 years?
Right.
Or what do you think?
I'll explain to you. The fact is that there is one Jewish state in the world. How many Arab states are there? Anybody know? 23. 23 Arab states. I'm not talking about Muslim states. Muslim states, there are 50. One Jewish state. Aren't we entitled to have this as our Jewish state? Now, in terms of the Arab refugees coming back, there are 1 million Jews that came from Arab countries and live here. 1 million. If anyone disagrees with me, tell me. From Iraq, from Syria, from Egypt, from Yemen. Where are they? None of them are in refugee camps. We gave them homes, we built for them, they're living here. Where are the Arab refugees? How are they living? In squalor, in poverty. Why? Haven't the Arabs got money? Saudi Arabia has got no money? Iraq with its millions and millions and millions? Why are they spending it on Scud missiles? Why aren't they building homes for these people? Their brothers and sisters and uncles live there. It's the same language, it's the same religion, it's the same dress. They're not strangers there.
I just want to go back. You've used a lot of legal terms, like, that this land is entitled to. There's certain basic assumptions that justify the statements that have been made, and specifically the entitlement based on a religious source of entitlement. If Israel is a secular democratic state, is that correct?
Right.
Okay, that believes in the rule of law.
Right.
That's correct. Okay, and yet the justification for your sovereignty is based on a religious origin. And you expect the entire world, Jewish or non-Jewish, to respect that authority. I mean, if you want to use your justifications, we could say that these lands weren't worked by Jews, and we came and confiscated them.
Just getting on that last question, if a person, he doesn't have to use the land, but if that person, where I built my house, would come to me, or would come to an Israeli court and said, listen, you're building on my land. Hold it. You're building on my land. Here, look, I've got a title deed to this land. I'd be out in 30 seconds.
This happens every day, but I'd like you to answer my question about biblical.
Okay, but that's my answer. That's my answer to that specific question. If a person has legal deeds to land, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have to work it. It's his, and nobody can touch it. When was there a state of Palestine with an Arab government?
Sir, you can call upon the Palestinians to prove that there was a state of Palestine. This is a pre-nation state system. The state Israel, what you call Israel, is biblical. It's not a state. It's not a state. You're asking to prove that there was a state of Palestine. We're talking about pre-nation states.
We had a Jewish kingdom here. We had a Jewish king. We had an Israeli king. The language was Hebrew. The religion was Jewish. We had government here.
Then don't call.
Should we reestablish the Roman Empire?
Exactly.
I'm sorry?
Exactly.
Should Italy reestablish the Roman Empire?
There are archaeological.
Where are the Romans? There are no Romans anymore.
The Italians, the French, the Spanish, the Romanians, they're all still there.
You come to my house now, I challenge you. Come to my house now, and I will show you the minutes of synagogue meetings in Vienna from the 1600, which were written in Hebrew.
Of course they were written in Hebrew.
You're saying Jews never spoke Hebrew? Jews never spoke Hebrew. You told me.
Jews remembered Hebrew just like the Catholic Church remembered Latin for all so many years. So we can talk about that would be the same thing in establishing the Roman Empire for the Catholic Church.
I need a week with you, my friend. I need a week with you.
We do. All of us. We do.
It's okay for them to have a deed to the land that is not a legal deed. It's a religious deed. But it's not okay for the fact that these lands may not have been registered because the traditions of the people, not just in the Middle East, but in the entire pre-nation state world, was based on ownership that's handed down from generations, that wasn't written, it was registered, it was just known because the people knew that they owned these lands. They play with words.
Every form of fascism appeals to an idea of the previous version of some state. Why was Nazi Germany called the Third Reich? Because we're the first ones were the Roman Empire and the medieval German Empire, and so Nazi Germany was a recreation. That's why it's called the Third Reich, the Third Empire, Third Kingdom. Mussolini talked about the same thing. He wanted to restore. He claimed the Roman heritage for Italy, rather correctly, but he wanted to restore Italy as a world power the way Rome was. So this is part of it. It's not a ridiculous comparison to say that what's going on here contains almost all the same elements of a dangerous ideology that is about war and creating a state violently rather than democratically peacefully.
With a newly imposed curfew over most of the occupied territories, we were unsure if we'd be able to make our final visit to a children's center in Bethlehem. Fortunately for the delegation, the day of our scheduled visit coincided with the national grade school and high school equivalency exams. Curfew was lifted in Bethlehem for a few hours to let the students take their tests. Even though curfew was lifted, Israeli soldiers fired on students on their way to take the tests. We arrived shortly afterwards to share song and dance with children taking shelter in the center.
Here to see what's going on, bring some presents to the children, sing some music, do something to have a presence here in this occupied territory. We feel that it's important that the international community comes here and that we are witness to what is going on and that we can do the most we can to be able to stop this occupation.
So I understand the way of your solidarity is to go and sing with the children in the refugee camps.
Yeah, today we're going to try to do that. We're going to meet children there, we're going to sing for them, we're going to do other stuff and join the community in whatever it's needed for whatever time we are able to help today.
Was it easy to get into Bethlehem?
This morning we had to go to one checkpoint and they said that we couldn't get through there, so we had to try to get somewhere else. So we are getting in. tu mano, beso la tierra que pisan tus pies, sé que por ti la vida daré, la vida daré. Ofrezco la luz de mis ojos, el fuego de mi corazón. Te ofrezco la luz de mis ojos, el fuego de mi corazón. Porque este dolor que me aflige es solo una parte de tu dolor. Te ofrezco la luz de mis ojos, el fuego de mi corazón. Porque este dolor que me aflige es solo una parte de tu dolor.
أشد على أيديكم وأبوس الأرض تحت نعاتكم وأقول
The Manger Square, which was 5 years ago the parking lot. All the buses, all the tourists who came here used to park the bus or their cars in this area. But when Bethlehem became under the Palestinian control in 1995, they started to renovate the area, and you can notice it was renovated by the fund of the European, mainly Sweden. But what is important is it's during the last incursion, when a group of Palestinian people who resisted the incursion, they took refuge inside the Church of Nativity because it's the safest spot for them. And the Israelis, they sieged the church and they accused them of taking the priest hostages, which is something completely wrong. The building here, it's the Bethlehem Peace Center, and during the incursion, it was the headquarters of their operation in Bethlehem area, the headquarters of the Israeli military force. Prior to the last incursion, Bethlehem was entered, I think, at least 3 times. This was the safest spot, and usually people, they used to come here to hide here. Normal, all the people. Fighters and non-fighters, they used to come to hide inside the church because they will be sure that they will not be face any problems. And if you look to that mountain there, Israeli army used to install a military post in that area there. And once a young boy, 16 years old, he used to work inside the church. He was going to his house, which is down there, down the slope. And when he reached that tree, they just opened fire. And he was killed.
Just playing with the children was the most amazing thing to me, being around them and talking to them and having them just feel at ease and happy just to be around people that make them feel comfortable and make them feel loved. That's all they want in life right now, is to feel some kind of affection and to just play and not have to worry about gunshots or anything like that, just to be freeless and, you know, not have to worry about anything else. And their kind of faith and peace, even with everything that's surrounding them, makes you hopeful that there is a way for peace to be accomplished.
Y he estado dispuesta a servir. Yo nunca he vendido mi patria y he estado dispuesta a servir. Frente al invasor fuerte con valor, huérfano dispuesto a morir. Yo nunca he vendido mi patria y he estado dispuesta a servir.